Shalom. Welcome to the Messianic Hour with Rabbi Scott Sekulow. The Messianic Hour is a program designed to give you insight into the Jewish roots of your faith. Rabbi Scott is also here to answer your questions and help you gain a deeper understanding of Bible prophecy. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Scott Sekulow.
Shalom and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. I'm here with my wife, Judy.
What was that?
I don't know. I'm excited because Lucky's, our dog, is making noises in the background. So.
Yeah, but I'm Rabbi Scott with this little thing. Okay, sorry.
And it's okay. And we are here to share with you a great show. We have a special guest, Pastor Mark Blitz. Maybe you've heard about him if you've been studying the blood moons coming up. And Mark and I met at a conference a couple weeks ago. And after talking to him, I said, we need to get you on the show because we need to get some clarification. I think a lot of people are misquoting Mark, and he wants to come on the show and really set the record straight.
Oh, people get misquoted?
People get misquoted. He is really getting misquoted right now. And,
never happens.
I actually had a completely different thought about what he was saying because of what I was hearing, and then when I actually sat down with him.
That's why you never go on what you hear.
That's why I did.
You take it straight from the person's mouth.
And that's why I went to him, and he and I had a great conversation. I said, you need to come on our show so you can start clarifying this. And not let people, think bad or different of you. And so I'm excited about it. It's going to be a great show. We've talked about this in the past with our good friend Bill Koenig. And matter of fact, we talked about this a couple of years ago when it first came out. And Bill and Mark know each other, and it's going to be a great opportunity. So you're not going to want to miss this show. And we have Lucky, our dog, who normally sits quietly under our table. It's amazing.
He lays under the table.
When we get ready to do our show, he comes, lays under the table, and that's it. But today...
Well, they have to understand, I don't know if you've seen the pictures on Facebook, but the radio studio is actually half of my regular office.
That's right.
My office does double, triple duty sometimes. So we have to, move everything, my desk chair and all of that to set the tables up. And Shani's got a desk where she runs the cameras and the videos and all of that. And we have lights up on the ceiling for the radio show. So anytime we come in and he starts seeing Shani put the cameras up and we turn the lights on, he goes and assumes the position and he goes up under the table. These are the little things you guys can't see.
But we're also recording on an odd day. We normally don't record on this day.
Yeah, but he never decides to eat this time of day. So
you're hearing a little crunch. That's our dog, Lucky, in the background. And
we'll
he's on every show.
We'll put a picture of him on the Facebook group.
We should, because he's a cute dog and he's very well behaved. And
sometimes, like his father. It's the
we
Scott
don't know who
Judy
his
show
dog
today.
is. So we're going to have fun, but it'll be a great show. And what we have coming up, Judy is in a laughing. We're getting ready to go on vacation. I think she's ready.
No, we just have Ruth and Prager coming in January that we talked about.
Very cool. And that's going to be January
16th
up in Flowery Branch, and the 19th
here, and that will be live streamed.
And that one will be. So check that out. We'll have it on our different websites. And check out all the neat stuff. Again, Mark Prager's coming on. We are listeners of Mark Prager. So there we go. Mark Blitz. I have the two together. But we are coming up towards the end of the year. If you want to make an end-of-the-year donation, please go to our website, rabbiscott.com. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter as well and get a free gift. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. The show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. And we have on the show a very special guest, Pastor Mark Blitz. And he has been doing a number of different works. You might have seen his different YouTubes and videos. He also live streams his services like we do. It's El Shaddai Ministries.us. We'll have a link on our Facebook page and all that for you so you can check that out. But he's also done a tremendous study on what's coming, a really interesting phenomenon that's coming up on these blood moons on these feasts that we're about to have and what's happened in the past. So we're going to look at that in a little bit. But Mark, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Scott, for having me on your show.
And Mark, you and I, we met at a conference that our good friend Jonathan Burness had hosted, and I'm really glad we had actually got to meet, because I had been hearing some things about what you were saying, and I really we sat down at a table, and someone else at the table actually asked you a question about it, and you really clarified it. And I said to you, I want you on our show, because you really need to get this word out so that people don't think you're teaching different things. You're very specific about what you teach, and so I'm really glad about that. But tell us a little bit about your ministry. How did you begin, and what are you doing now?
Sure. In 2001, I started El Shaddai Ministries with just 2 other families as a home fellowship. And over the last 12 years, it's grown to, we have about 600 to 700 people who come every Shabbat. And then we have live streaming, thousands that live stream. We get about 2 million hits a month on our website.
Wow. And you've been doing this now for, like you said, since 2001. You were raised as what?
Well, my last name wasn't always Biltz. My ancestor was Isaac Hirsch, but due to Jewish persecution in France, he changed his name to Naphtali Biltz. His grandson was a nice Jewish man with a Jewish family, but he was tired of being a poor tailor, so he abandoned them and went off with a wealthy Catholic lady to America. And so I was raised Catholic, but we still would do the Passover in honor of our Jewish roots, so to speak, every now and then on Passover.
And so...
I got saved in 1975.
Okay.
I left the Catholic Church and traveled around with a Christian youth ministry for a couple of years, went to Bible college, taught in the Bible college, and then in 93, my wife bought me a book on the Jewish feasts from a rabbi perspective, the Jewish perspective, and it blew me away, and I said, I got to know more. So,
and it's great. You've done some great work, and so it's really brought in. And now, where is your congregation located?
Tacoma, Washington.
So you're all the way on the other side of the country from us. We're in Atlanta, Georgia, and so you have a great, tremendous following there. And I've, it's funny because people for years have said you and I got to get together, and I'm glad we were able to. And you got some great work going on there, and not only on the main campus, but you're live streaming as well, and you've been doing some teachings, and we're going to talk about this on the blood moons that are coming up this coming up year. So give us a little background on that.
Well, sure. In 2008, I saw a total lunar eclipse over the Temple Mount on the internet, and I got to thinking about what the Bible says about the sun turning to sackcloth and the moon to blood. And I knew God created everything scientifically, so I went to NASA's website, which is all science, and they have 5,000 years of eclipses. And in Genesis 1:14, God said He created the sun and the moon for signs or signals on His feast days, the Moedim. In English, it says seasons. So typically, the Christians think winter, spring, summer, fall, but it's not what it is. It's Moedim for His feast days. And so I looked at NASA's website, and I noticed in 2014, 2015, there were 4 total blood moons in a row. And I was surprised. And then when I found out they fell on Passover and Tabernacles both years, I was just knocked out of my socks. So I went back and looked, and the last time it happened was 67 and 68 when they captured Jerusalem. The time before that was right after they became a nation. And so it's like, man, here God says He created the sun and the moon for signals on His feast days. And then I look, and that's exactly what happens. So I thought, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't set dates. I don't control eclipses. I don't control the calendar. But I think as watchmen, when we look at the pattern, we need to be aware of what's going on in God's calendar.
Now, Mark, you said so you've gone back, and how many times has this event actually happened when the blood moons have happened on these 2 feasts?
It's really quite incredible. Over the last 2,000 years, it's happened only 8 times. And when I went back and looked, do you know, all around the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D., there weren't these tetrads, 4 blood moons, but He said He would put signs in the heavens on His feast days, and there are solar lunar eclipses in 69, 70, and 71 A.D., all around the destruction of the temple. Very
interesting. Now, you said that there was a total of 8, so dating over the last 5,000 years, so when you talked about the most recent 2, what about some of the other ones?
Okay, well, they're also right after the Inquisition in Spain. Everyone's familiar with 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Well, in 1493, 1494, you had these 4 blood moons on these feast days. And this is right after all the Jews were kicked out of Spain and out of Portugal. So it's very interesting that you would, have this happen.
Right. And then prior to that, how far back do we go? Because I know, obviously, we don't have as much known history on the other dates, right?
Well, the time before that, it happened, believe it or not, in 1428 and 1429. It happened in the year 860 and 861. It happened in 842, 843. It happened in 795 and 796. And then the time before that was 162 and 163.
And what happened? Anything happens around those dates that you found so far? Because I know you're still working on it.
Yeah, well, some of the things, some of it is so old history. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of history we have from what, was written around those times. But let me see. I do believe I have some interesting things that happened in the 1493. I'm looking through something real quick to see.
While you're looking, and that's what's really interesting is that Mark's not trying to say, something's definitely going to happen this coming up year, but what we're looking at is here's an unusual phenomenon that happens with the Earth cycle, with the moon, and look what happens a year before, a year after these events. Major things have happened, and that's a key thing to realize. No one's trying to prophesize anything here. It's just looking back, and we're not saying that every time this takes place something has happened, but what you're seeing here is look back as far as we can, especially in modern history, that we can see these types of things. We have written information on. We are seeing this happen. We don't know what necessarily might have happened in some of the previous years just because it goes so far back. Mark, did you find that yet?
Yeah. Well, and here's some other things too. And it's not just the tetrads. It's also just solar eclipses, lunar eclipses happening on these biblical holidays, and significance happen. For example, I have in 1428, 1429. I had found that it says the Jews of Italy met in Florence in 1428 and gathered funds to give to Pope Martin V in return for his protection. And this came from the Jewish Virtual Library. So there's just different things that happen. But what I think is significant, get a load of this. I don't think anyone has pinpointed the exact year that Yeshua died, whether it's somewhere between 30 and 33 A.D.
Right.
But in 32 and 33 A.D., there was a solar eclipse on the 1st of Nisan. There was a total lunar eclipse on Passover, a solar eclipse on Rosh Hashanah, another total lunar eclipse on Sukkot, and then again in 33, a total solar eclipse on Nisan 1, followed by a lunar eclipse on Passover, another solar eclipse on Rosh Hashanah, and another lunar eclipse on Sukkot, all during the time period when Yeshua died on the cross. So it's not just these blood moon tetrads. It's God said He's going to send signals on His feast days, And so to me it's incredible. You don't see these patterns.
You brought up an interesting point. We only got about a minute and a half left in this segment, so I want to we're going to hit that when we come back. But tell people how they can get in touch with your ministry, how they can see it before we close out the segment.
Sure. The easiest way is just to Google my name, Mark Biltz, and it'll take you to our website, which is www.elshaddaiministries.us.
And how do you spell your last name? Because I realize I've been saying it wrong.
Yeah, Biltz. But everyone says Blitz and spells it Blitz, but we have it set up that even if you spell it wrong, it'll still get you to our website.
And that's great. And what I want to bring up, you brought up an interesting point, because the Scripture is very clear that while Yeshua was on the cross, it says that darkness covered the earth, and we read that, we don't think about it, but that it could have been what you said as an eclipse.
Well,
and yet now you've used science to actually show, guess what? This actually happened at this time. So we're going to take a look at that a little bit more detail when we get back from the break. Again, I want to encourage you, go to our website, rabbiscott.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, get a free book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish. Do you, just for signing up, and a prophecy card. 70 key prophecies, where they're found in the Torah, where they're fulfilled in the renewed covenant, to help you share your faith. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Messianic Hour. Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. The show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. I want to encourage you, go to our website, rabbiscott.com. There you can sign up for our newsletter. You get a free gift, the book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish to You, and the prophecy card to help you share your faith with your unsaved Jewish and Gentile friends. While you're there, too, remember we are a listener-supported show. You can give right there online to help us expand this ministry and to continue the work that we're doing. And remember, Judy and I are going to Israel on June 9th through the 19th. We would love for you to join us next year. We have a couple seats left still at this year's prices. If you want to join us, you don't have to pay 2014 prices. You'll only pay the 2013 prices. You won't have any increases. And that is $39.99 from Atlanta round trip. If you're not in Atlanta, you can either meet us up in Newark or here in Atlanta and fly with us up to there. So check that out. If you want more information, just mail us at mail@rabbiscott.com. Well, we are back with Mark Blitz. Did I say it right this time? Biltz. I'm going to keep that. My dyslexia will have in my mind forever the other way. Biltz. And he is a Messianic pastor out in Washington and has the ministry El Shaddai Ministries.us is their website. And we've been talking about the blood moons, and we've been talking about the situation that happened with Yeshua. And during the break, we were talking a little more. And Mark, you brought up a good point that. So go ahead and explain. We have this situation that happens at Yeshua's crucifixion, where darkness comes across the day, in the middle of the day. And was that a lunar eclipse, or was that something supernatural?
It was something totally supernatural. From noon to 3 is when it was dark. Well, Passover, as you know, is like the 14th, the 15th of a biblical month. You can only have a solar eclipse at a new moon, or the first day of a biblical month. You can only have a lunar eclipse on the middle of the month, the 15th, when it's a full moon on the 15th, the middle of the month. And total lunar eclipses typically are at night, not during the day. Not only that, eclipses don't last 3 hours. A total eclipse, whether there be a sun or a moon, is only maybe 10 minutes max. So therefore, there could have been a total lunar eclipse that night on Passover, but the darkness from noon to 3 was something that was totally supernatural.
So God was really using that as a sign to say, look, this is something that science can't explain because it's not the norm.
Right, exactly.
And that's a great point to bring out, because, scientists always like, we always hear, the 10 plagues, it's not really an issue because, the waters, these things have happened before. But here's something that science can't go back and say, here's how this happened, correct?
Exactly.
And that's a very important point to really understand with this situation. So, you mentioned the scripture is very clear. He says, I will use the sun and the moons as signs for the seasons. It lets us know what's going on. And again, this coming up year, we're going to have these blood moons coming on these specific dates. It's only happened 8 times in the last 5,000 years, but I would say the history of the world. I'm not one of these ones who believe the world was around for millions of years. God created, the scripture's clear on what it says. And we have this unique situation that's going to take place. But again, you're not prophesying about it. You're not saying this is what's going to happen. Is that correct?
Exactly right. I don't control an eclipse. I don't control the calendar. All I am saying is look at the pattern, and these things will happen on the feast days. And now some people say, well, are all of them seen in Jerusalem? No, the last one is seen in Jerusalem. But I like to say God loves the whole world. Everyone around the world will be able to see one of these eclipses. But really, it's a moot point, because anyone with an internet connection can see all the eclipses.
Right.
But the most incredible thing is the total lunar eclipse that is on Tabernacles in 2015, because it is a super moon that is seen in Jerusalem. So here, when all the Jews are out in their tabernacles, in their sukkahs, on Feast of Tabernacles in 2015, they're going to be looking up, and they're going to see this gigantic super moon that's also a blood moon being seen in Israel. Incredible.
That truly is. Now, I know there's other ministries out there that are really trying to hype up this feast, and like I said, a lot of people have been misquoting you to make it sound like you were trying to predict things, and obviously you're not. What would you say to people who are listening to these other ministries? What do they need to watch out for?
Well, I can't respond necessarily to other ministries, but there's a lot of wackos out there, like you said. I like to stick to the science. I'm not saying anything's going to happen even on the day of the eclipse. I'm just saying over a 3 or 4 year period, we need to be watching.
Right.
One thing I can say, and like I predict that the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Wahoo! That doesn't make me a prophet by any means. That's what I'm hoping. But
well, if the Falcons do that, it would be a miracle.
But hey, here's the thing. When you look at the past, what happened in 48? It was a biblically prophetic war involving Israel. What happened in 67? A biblically prophetic war involving Israel.
Right.
We know there's some biblically prophetic wars that could potentially take place, especially when you see what's happening in Syria and Egypt and Iran, all over the Middle East. So I think we need to be watching to see if that happens. I'm not saying it's going to.
Right.
But looking at the pattern, that is one thing that is definitely on my radar.
And that's important for people to realize. This is not, we're not prophesying, but what Mark's saying, what I'm agreeing with him, is that, look, this is what's happened in the past. This is those warning signs or those situations to look out, to be ready. You know, the scripture talks about that there'll be signs and wonders, and these are the things that we are to look at to be ready for what's to come. And that's really, I think, when I talked to Mark personally, when we sat down, that's what I got from him is, look, we're not saying this is going to happen or that's going to happen, there's going to be a war, but what he's looking at is saying, here's the facts. This is what's happened in the past. This is an unusual situation. This is how God's used the sun and the moon and the stars during these feasts. This is the next one that's coming up. We need to be watching to see how this unfolds in front of us. Again, not prophesying that something's going to happen, but to say, look and be ready. And I think that's key. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, and that's why I jokingly say we are a non-profit ministry.
And he's got a good sense of humor, too, so that's great. Again, Mark, they can... Now, you're coming out with a book about this. Is that correct?
A book and a film. Both are coming out in March, yes.
In March, and we'll have you back on then, too?
I'm answering all the objections that people have had over the last 5 years since I've discovered this, as well as laying out all the facts from NASA.
And where will people be able to get the books in March? Where will that be? Do you know yet?
Well, it'll be in all the bookstores. Of course, you can get it from our website as well.
So we'll definitely have you back at least in March, if not sooner, to help promote that book and that video. Now, the video, will that be for, we have about 2 minutes left, is that going to be for like movie-type video? Or
it's a documentary. It'll be more like a documentary, kind of like the Isaiah, 9/11 by Jonathan Cahn kind
Gotcha.
of a thing.
Okay, so it'll be something that they can get either online or watch, things like that. Well, great. Again, I want to encourage you to look up about this, do some research on it. Go to elshaddaiministries.us. You can also search Mark's name, Mark, and then Blitz.
No, B-I-L.
And
He corrected.
did I say something wrong, Mark?
Yeah, it's B-I-L-T-Z.
Biltz. I'm sorry, my dyslexia falls into place there, and they can check that out. We'll have it on our website as well, so they can see that. I want to encourage you again to tune in, watch what's going on, because this is really interesting to see how this takes place and what's going on. Again, I want to encourage you, you can join us on June 9th through the 19th. I don't think there'll be any lunar eclipses then in Israel, but we will be in the land. You can join us on a great trip. It's not too late to sign up. We got over 25 people joining us at this time. So check that out at the website, rabbiscott.com, for more information. You can mail us with your questions at mail@rabbiscott. Sign up for our newsletter. Remember to watch us on the Roku channel. On the Messianic channel, you'll be able to see this interview right there on it, and we'll be all set. And I want to again encourage you to go to our website and check it out. You can even plant a tree in Israel to help bless the land. Mark, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you.
And until next week, this is Rabbi Scott
and Judy
saying shalom and pray for the peace of Jerusalem.